Hello and greetings from Dnipro Ukraine. I want to talk about what's going on with the peace deal, and I want to provide some input and some insights as to what it's like to be here in Dnipro, in Ukraine, while the war is happening. And for example, just yesterday I heard a loud explosion, and 4 people were killed in the Pobeda region, a really beautiful region right on the river. 4 people were killed, another 20 people were injured, and every day that passes, more people get killed, more people get injured, and we need to talk about the environmental effects of that, and we need to talk about the environmental effects of Ukraine blowing up oil tankers on the Black Sea, which is a pristine body of water, and Ukraine attacking ships that aren't even owned by Russia, and we need to talk about the environmental impact of all of this, that about 20 million rounds of artillery have been blown up in the Donbass region. I think about 20,000 rockets and Shahed rockets and Iskander hypersonic missiles, and even here in Dnipro, Ukraine, Russia launched an ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile, that breaks off the 6 different warheads, and luckily they weren't nuclear, but those types of rockets are designed to be nuclear capable, and that blew up a big region here. So we've got the Shahed drones, we've got all sorts of environmental devastation, and we've got children being traumatized. This war is going on and on. People are dying every day. And the main point of what I want to contribute to this is time a friend to Ukraine? Is time a friend to Russia? I think time is not a friend to Russia. I don't think time is a friend to Ukraine. I think we know how this war is probably going to end. It's going to end with Ukraine not joining NATO, making some concessions. Crimea will be officially recognized as a part of Russia. Russia wants very aggressively that all 4 regions that they partially hold, they want all of those regions, even areas that they don't currently control, to be given to Russia. That's, to me, a little bit, I don't see much historical precedence in that being allowed, but that can be discussed. That's what they want, and that can be discussed. They can say whatever they want to say in negotiations, and then we can counter.
Russia targeted Ukrainian troops and civilians, striking an apartment complex near Kyiv, killing one.
It's the type of stuff you see all the time. You see apartments getting blown up, people getting killed every day. Oh, another apartment block, another apartment block. That looks like that was a Shahed type rocket, which they cost about $20,000. They're not super expensive, and now they have jet Shaheds. They're called Geran, Geran rockets.
Person and wounding others, including children, according to local officials. In Miami, President Trump's foreign policy team, Secretary Mark.
So now we see the table. We see Steve Witkoff, we see Marco Rubio, we see the president's son-in-law. We see all the Ukrainian people. How many of these people have a real strong history of diplomacy, have studied peaceful endings to, successful endings to wars? I hope a lot of them, but I'm not so sure. I will say this, if we want to look at how not to do it, look at the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles was so absurd that the most famous economists of the last 100 years, stormed out of Versailles and said, there's just going to be another war. Now, that was John Maynard Keynes. Stormed out of the whole thing. So we've got to realize that concessions need to be made that are not devastating to either side in order to create a lasting peace.
Rubio, envoy Steve Witkoff, and son-in-law Jared Kushner met with top Ukrainian officials for the second time in 2 weeks.
Obviously, Jared Kushner is at the table. Obviously, Trump feels he can trust his son-in-law, and with Trump, there's so much trust involved. But can Trump get experienced people that have a high-level understanding of history and diplomacy? People that speak Russian, maybe. Hint, hint.
To end the war. They're trying to come up with a unified position after Trump's initial peace plan was slammed by Ukrainians and European allies.
So the European allies are coming in, and I don't think that the European allies are serious about creating a real peace deal that's going to end this war. And I would say to the European allies, to Macron and to the German leaders and to the and to the people throughout Europe, especially England, time's not a friend to Ukraine. For them to say, hey, keep fighting another year, Ukraine could lose a lot more territory, a lot more soldiers. We could have a Saigon moment where the whole thing collapses and then Russia kind of takes whatever they want. And I don't think it's in Russia's best interest to take Kharkiv and Odessa, but they may be tempted to do so if there's a complete collapse of the military. I don't think that's in Russia's best interest to take those territories, but I think it's obvious that concessions are going to have to be made far beyond what the European leaders want.
As capitulation and surrender to Russia.
Keep in mind, it's not France, it's not Germany, it's not England that are losing, 1,000 people every week, whether it's soldiers or people or whatever, and that their territory is being blown up and destroyed, and the pollution is horrifying. So that's not happening there, it's happening here. So when it's happening here, you have a different mindset.
Work remains, but today was again a very productive and useful session.
On Air Force One, President Trump said,
and Trump seems to talk to the Russians and then seems to want to implement what the Russians say. Then he talks to the Europeans, and then he seems to completely change his stance and say, well, we need what the Europeans want, which is Ukraine to join NATO. Ukraine joining NATO is a no deal. Every political party within Russia is staunchly against Ukraine joining NATO. The end of the Cold War was based upon the unification of Germany. And once that happened, there would be no more expansion of NATO. It was promised to Russia, I think, about 100 times or 200 times. I have documents to support that. I really don't want to discuss that further. Anyone that thinks that that promise wasn't made, you're wrong. Okay, so then they kept the promise for about 9 years, and then they started expanding NATO, and it's basically doubled in size. And several countries now border Russia. Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Poland legally borders Kaliningrad, which is a part of Russia. And also Finland has a large border with Russia. The Ukrainian border is 1,200 miles, about 2,000 kilometers. So let's look here.
There's a good chance for a peace deal.
Ukraine's got some difficult little problems.
Security guarantees so that Russia won't invade again. Ukraine is asking for a path to NATO membership.
A path to NATO membership, it's a no-go. It's not going to happen. Now, keep in mind, I just read all the documentation yesterday. In order to join NATO, all 30 countries need to approve of Ukraine joining NATO. They don't have the votes. It's not going to happen. Let's move on to the next subject. Ukraine does not have the votes to join NATO. If Ukraine doesn't join NATO, we could probably get an instant and hopefully permanent ceasefire leading to a total resolution of this war. It's a no-go. It's not going to happen. The fact that they're still talking about it is, in my opinion, quite honestly silly.
Says that's not an option and has proposed more vague alternatives. But Zelensky is in a weak spot. His chief of staff and top negotiation scandal. And Ukrainian troops have been slowly losing ground.
So that's the point. Is time a friend to Ukraine? I'm saying it's not. It's not. It's not. Ukraine needs to very aggressively make concessions to a higher level than they want to make. And Russia needs to do the same thing. I don't think that Russia wants 3, 4, 5 more years of warfare. Now, keep in mind, we could have a fall of Saigon moment where Russia comes in and takes whatever they want. Is that even in Russia's best interest? I think it's not. I don't think, as I've said before, I don't think that Kharkiv wants to become a part of Russia. I don't think Odessa wants to become a part of Russia. And if Russia takes these territories, I think it would be a nightmare for Russia.
Russia currently occupies about 20% of Ukraine. The territory creates a so-called land bridge from Russia to Crimea, which Putin also snatched from Ukraine a decade ago. Putin is demanding that Ukraine voluntarily hand over more territory, land which Russia has failed to capture in battle, and for the world to recognize his conquests as legitimate.
So in the Donbas territories, not all of the Donbas is controlled by Russia. Not all of Zaporozhye is controlled by Russia. But what Putin is saying, they want all the territories, even territories that are not currently controlled by Russia, to be given to Russia. These 4 major territories. That's a provocative request. Maybe they feel they could just collapse the Ukraine military and just take whatever they want at that point. Quite honestly, as someone that studied history, I just don't see much precedence for that. It's an interesting request, but I don't think that there's much precedence.
Ukraine's President Zelensky says that's a non-starter.
And that, you already have Zelensky saying that.
Special Envoy Steve Wood.
So, anyway, that's about it. I still think that if we really want to end this war, Ukraine doesn't join NATO, and there's going to have to be some territorial concessions. Do I agree with Putin thinking that he can take all 4 territories, all of these territories? That needs to be discussed. I'm not sure. And a lot of these decisions, like think of Zaporozhye, a lot of these decisions as to what will be Russia, what will be Ukraine, should be made by the preference of the people that are there. Okay? So I know that Crimea is very, very Russian and very patriotic Russian. I think they would like to stay a part of Russia. As a matter of fact, I'm certain of that. But you look at some of these other territories like Zaporozhye, like areas of the Donbass that are not as far to the east. Maybe they prefer to be more affiliated with regions where I'm in Dnipro right now, not far from the Donbass where the war is. So let's think about what the people want when deciding where to draw the line. What will be Russia? What will be Ukraine? What are the preferences of the people that are living there? So anyway, I hope everyone finds this interesting, and I hope you get a sense for my urgency that I don't think time is a friend to Ukraine, or for that matter to Russia. And I think the people, if we care at all about what the people of Ukraine want, the Ukrainian people want peace. They want this war to end. Anyway, I hope you found that this is interesting, and have a great day. Thank you.